The town of Hollow Creek held its breath. It was a place shrouded in shadows, even on the brightest day. The trees, ancient and gnarled, seemed to claw at the sky, their branches intertwined like skeletal fingers. A thick, unnatural fog clung to the ground, swirling with unseen currents. Beneath the surface of this picturesque town lay a deep, unsettling silence, broken only by the rustling of leaves and the distant caw of a crow. The silence was deceptive. It whispered of secrets best left buried, of stories whispered in hushed tones. The town was a vessel, filled to the brim with unanswered questions and haunted by the ghosts of its past. The townsfolk knew better than to venture out after dark, for the shadows held a certain power here, and in the heart of those shadows something whispered back. Sarah, a young journalist with a thirst for the unknown, felt an immediate chill as she drove into Hollow Creek. The stories she'd heard had painted a picture of a quaint, forgotten town. But this was different. This was a place that felt abandoned, forgotten by time itself. The air grew heavy with a strange energy, sending a shiver down her spine.
This place, it's not what I expected.
She pulled up to the only inn in town, a rickety building with peeling paint and a drooping sign that read The Whispering Pines. As she stepped out of the car, she noticed the wary glances of the locals. Their eyes, filled with a mixture of fear and resignation, followed her every move.
Turn back while you still can.
But Sarah, her curiosity piqued, was already under Hollow Creek's spell. The inn's owner, a stooped old man with eyes that seemed to hold centuries of memories, greeted Sarah with a hesitant nod. His voice, a low rasp, matched the creaking floorboards and the howling wind outside. As Sarah settled into her room, she couldn't shake the feeling that she was being watched.
The woods, they have a way of claiming folks, especially those who dig too deep.
Over lukewarm tea and stale bread, the old man shared the town's dark history. He spoke of people vanishing without a trace, their disappearances shrouded in mystery. He spoke of whispers that haunted the night, luring unsuspecting souls into the surrounding woods, never to be seen again. The old man's words echoed in Sarah's mind as she lay in bed, unable to shake the feeling of unease. The wind howled outside, its mournful cry sounding like the wail of something ancient and mournful. Just as she was drifting off to sleep, she heard it. A whisper, faint at first, then growing louder, seemed to come from the very walls themselves.
Help us, we are lost.
Sarah sat bolt upright, her heart pounding in her chest. The room was dark, the only sound the incessant wind and the whispered pleas that seemed to be coming from everywhere and nowhere at once. She tried to rationalize the sounds, to dismiss them as figments of her imagination. But deep down, she knew that something was terribly wrong. Section 5. The Whispering Woods. The next morning, armed with her camera and a growing sense of dread, Sarah set out to explore the woods that bordered the town.
The air grew noticeably colder as I entered the woods, the sunlight struggling to penetrate the dense canopy of leaves overhead.
The trees, twisted and gnarled, seemed to press in on her, their branches reaching out like skeletal arms.
As I walked deeper into the woods, I noticed something strange.
Carved into the bark of one of the trees were names, dozens of them. Some faded with time, others as fresh as the morning dew. They were the names of the missing people, their final resting place, marked on this solitary tree in the heart of the Whispering Woods. Section 6, Lost and Afraid. The sun began to set, casting long, eerie shadows that seemed to writhe and twist like living things.
A strange mist began to rise from the ground, swirling around my ankles like ghostly tendrils.
Panic welled up inside her as she realized she was hopelessly lost. The once familiar paths seemed to shift and change before her eyes, leading her further into the heart of the woods.
The whispers returned, louder this time, swirling around me like the mist.
Help us, save us, find us.
They seemed to be coming from all directions, the voices of the missing, their pleas for help echoing through the trees. Faces pale and gaunt began to appear in the swirling mist, their eyes filled with a mixture of sadness and accusation.
I stumbled backward, my heart pounding in my chest, my breath catching in my throat.
She was trapped, alone in the heart of the Whispering Woods, surrounded by the ghosts of the town's past. Section 7, The Face in the Darkness. Just when Sarah thought the terror couldn't get any worse, she saw her.
A young girl, no more than 8 years old, stood in the middle of the path, her pale face illuminated by a sliver of moonlight. Her eyes, wide and filled with a sadness beyond her years, seemed to pierce my soul.
Please help them find their way home.
The image of the little girl flickered, and for a moment Sarah saw through her, saw the darkness that clung to her, the pain that twisted her features. She was just a child, lost and alone, a prisoner of the woods and whatever dark forces held sway here. Section 8, A Promise Made. Sarah's fear gave way to a surge of sympathy. This girl, this lost soul, was not there to harm her. She was reaching out, seeking help, not for herself, but for the others trapped in this nightmare. In that moment, Sarah knew she couldn't abandon her. She wouldn't turn her back on the lost souls of Hollow Creek.
I promise I'll do whatever I can.
As she spoke, she felt a cold hand brush against hers, and then, just as quickly, it was gone. The little girl vanished, fading back into the shadows, her plea for help echoing in the silence. Section 9, Sarah's Truth. The next morning, Sarah stumbled out of the woods, her clothes torn, her face pale and drawn. She had no memory of how she escaped the woods, only the chilling encounter with the little girl and the promise she had made. She went back to the inn, packed her things, and left Hollow Creek, the whispers following her like a haunting melody.
The lost souls of Hollow Creek deserve justice. They deserve to be remembered, their stories told.
Sarah returned to the city, her heart heavy with the weight of their whispers. She poured her experiences into her writing, her words a chilling testament to the horrors she had witnessed. Section 10, The Echoes Remain. Sarah's story sent shockwaves through the city. People were horrified, captivated by the tale of Hollow Creek and its haunting secrets. The authorities launched an investigation drawn in by Sarah's chilling account and the undeniable evidence she presented. But even as the world learned of Hollow Creek's darkness, the town itself remained unchanged. The whispers continue to echo through the empty streets, a stark reminder of the town's tragic past. The woods still stand dark and silent, guarding their secrets jealously. The lost souls of Hollow Creek may never find peace, but their stories live on, carried by the wind and the whispers that refuse to be silenced. Their stories serve as a chilling reminder that some secrets are best left buried, and some places are better left undisturbed.